So I watched Bullet Train in Japan. When the movie finished and the lights went back on, I said, wow, I think I haven't laughed this much in ages. I turned to my mum who was next to me, and that was the moment she thought she raised a demon. Bullet trains are massive in Japan. We have so many in all different shapes and sizes. We have Bullet Train plushies, Bullet Train anime, notebook, cutlery, shirts, pants. Hell, we even have an idol group called Bullet Train. Now that must mean a movie called Bullet Train must be an instant success in Japan, right? So when I told this to one of my Japanese peeps, he went, what? Why is it called Bullet Train then? What the hell is a Bullet Train? What? Bullet Punchy? So I stopped him there. Bullet Train means Shinkansen. He instantly smiled and licked his lips. Now, what the Japanese find funny and interesting can be a little different to what the other parts of the world might find funny and interesting. In the cinema, the Japanese people laughed a lot when a kettle hit Brad Pitt in the head in slow motion. I bursted out laughing when Brad Pitt punched a plushie. But I understand Japanese and English, so I understand both sides. So today I thought, sure, let's go through how the Japanese reacted to different scenes in Bullet Train and what they laughed at in the cinema. The quiet car fight scene. First, let's look at this memorable fight scene against Lemon and Ladybug. Now, I loved the fighting between these two, but the two fighting isn't the main event. It's BAM! Her! The be quiet lady. The lady turns to Ladybug and goes, shh, I'll call the conductor. Now, as I recall, Brad Pitt responds to this lady by saying, I quote, go eat a bag of dicks, lady. And guess what? Everyone in the cinema laughed, but with a tiny twist. So I went to see this with the original English dub, but with the Japanese subtitles. Now, nobody in Japan goes, go eat a bag of dicks. In English, you could interpret it and it even could sound like a funny insult, but in Japan, it just sounds retarded. So the Japanese sub said something a little more straightforward. Instead, it made Brad Pitt say, shut up, you old hack. Way more straightforward and way more Japanese laughter. The cameos. We had Channing Tatum, which got everyone that noticed giggling. Sandra Bullock. Bollocks. But then, when the White Death was going to finish off Ladybug, and we see who Carver actually is, and it was bloody Ryan Reynolds, I choked on my popcorn for the 4th time at this point, but no one else laughed, and that's when it really sank in that I was living in Japan. I mean, it's not like Ryan Reynolds is not known here, but I guess it's not like everyone knows him in Japan. When I asked my mum if she knew who he was, she nodded her head. So I was like, oh, maybe it's just not funny then. So just to make sure, I said, La La Land? And she went, yes, that one. That confirmed everything I needed to know. This movie had a lot of things you could talk about. The scenery, iconic songs translated to Japanese, the Momongas, Thomas the Tank Engine, aka my mother's favorite part of the movie because it was PG funny, and my MVP, the bloody water bottle. I would say the most laughed at scene by the Japanese audience were the kettle, the suitcase, and the shh lady. So why was the kettle scene the most laughed at scene? Is it because it was simple, just like the suitcase scene? Well, it's not quite that simple. We are forgetting one important factor. We can't end this without looking back at the most crucial element of this movie for any Japanese. Sanada Hiroyuki! When he came onto the screen, everyone started shagging their seats viciously. I mean, you could ask any Japanese and they would say Sanada-san was awesome. The build-up and the music to the fight against the Elder and the White Death and his assassins was, to describe it, bloody emotional beauty. Felt like Sanada-san was a true veteran, a master and legend in his field, working with a beautiful cast, including the legendary Brad Pitt. Every time Sanada-san was in a scene, you could see anything was super effective. It's like Pokemon, as ghosts are super effective to ghosts, Japanese is super effective against Japanese. After looking back at everything, when you really look into the iconic scene when the kettle hits Brad Pitt's head, it all makes sense why it was so funny to the Japanese. Every Japanese knows what a kettle is. There's no weird insults or need for subtitles. You will see that Sanada Hiroyuki was also in this scene. After seeing that and put all of these together, perfect Japanese comedy. Now, you could say it's weird that that was the scene the Japanese laughed at the most in the cinema. But to be fair, I'm only talking about the Japanese that was in my cinema. While the Japanese may be hyper mesmerized by Sanada-san, I have my English side. For me, it was like, and I was shagging my seat twice as viciously. Staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive, staying alive. Staying alive.